Welcome to the Exploring Ways to Wellness podcast, where we investigate different approaches to wellness. Today's episode is all about finding joy, community, and personal growth in the most unexpected place, cold water swimming. Millie's story is anything but ordinary. From overcoming a childhood fear of open water to becoming a passionate cold water swimmer, she proves that wellness is about so much more than just physical fitness. Get ready to be inspired by this chilly journey of courage, community, and unexpected discoveries that could become your new way of improving your wellness. Hello, Millie and I met when we were giving out medals at the last Commonwealth Games in Birmingham. So that was a very exciting time. And actually, since then, I've been following Millie on Facebook because she has had a very interesting, unconventional route into a wellness practice. So welcome, Millie. Thank you very much for agreeing to be on the Exploring Ways to Wellness podcast.
You're very welcome.
Would you like to give us a bit of your background and how you started looking for something a bit different to aid your wellness?
So originally I was a runner and really enjoyed the runner's high. I had explored everything I could with running. I'd done the 5Ks, I'd gone to the 10Ks, I'd done the half marathons, and I peaked with a marathon under the age of 50, which I did. And that was sort of closed that book for me. I'd done it. There was nowhere else for me to go with it, really. And I thought, well, what can I do next? How can I push myself out of that comfort zone? And how can I show my children at the time, which are now young adults, that actually you can overcome any fear that you have? And I, as a child, had a fear of open water due to mainly the fact that I'd been taken to Blackpool Beach as a child and gone running into the sea and been surrounded by lots of seaweed and got cocooned in it and thought I was going to drown. And ever since then, I've not gone near the sea. If we go to the seaside, I won't go in, and definitely not gone in any lakes or anything like that. So I decided that I would do a triathlon because I thought that would share my love of I can do a bit of running, I can do a bit of cycling, and I can do a bit of swimming. So I signed up for a triathlon, just a sprint one, a small one. And the triathlon was due to take place in Bristol in June. And by March time, I'd still not put my toe in anything shapely like outside water. Swimming pool, absolutely. But outside water, no. So I went off to the outdoor show at the NEC. I was surrounded by all these people that looked very athletic, not like my good self, and much younger than I was. And I thought, no, I'm not going to be put off. I'm going to buy a wetsuit. So I bought a wetsuit and I managed to find a very secluded lake, which was life guarded, and dragged the husband along and got into my wetsuit, got into my socks, got into the hat, all the gear, no idea at that time. And about 50 paces down into the lake, had a major panic attack and came running out. Never going to do it again. I can't do it. I can't break it. Went home, gave myself a good talking to, went back the following week. And as luck would have it, there was a lady already swimming in the lake this time. So as I neared the edge of the water, she was swimming towards me and I just started chatting to her. And the diversion tactic of just chatting whilst I was getting in and talking to her about her swimming escapades, actually, I got in and I'd swum 200 meters in and back before I knew what I'd done. And so I realized that there's this camaraderie that comes with swimming. I went on.
Did you expect that kind of that camaraderie to be part of it, or you thought of it as a solo activity?
I felt it was a solo activity for me because a lot of the time when you're swimming, you're head down and you're isolated. But this lady was very chatty. She said to me, "Is it your first time here? Have you swum anywhere else? This is what I do. Have you tried breathing? Have you tried this? Have you tried that?" And by the time we'd got round, I felt like I'd known her for years. And that's, in a lot of ways, what's actually happened over the last couple of years. So to cut a long story short, I did my triathlon. And there were lots of athletic people there, all doing front crawl and head in and jumping in off the side and doing nice dives. And I lowered myself in gradually and I did the swim and I finished it and I was really, really proud of myself. And I realized that I don't actually like cycling that much. And I've done the running.
Right.
So I sort of hung on to the swimming. And I thought, well, I've done that. What can I do next? And I was on Facebook one day and I saw a ladies swimming group. And I thought, well, I might go along and try that and see what it's like. Because I'd done a lot of swimming on my own. And
Mm.
my husband thought I was mad because I joined this Facebook group and they said, oh, we meet in this pub car park on a Tuesday night at 6 o'clock. Why don't you come along? So I said to Neil, my husband, I'm going to meet this group of ladies in this pub car park at 6 o'clock and go for a swim. And he was convinced I was going to get murdered. So I turned up in this pub car park, not knowing anybody, and met this group of ladies that were all stood round in their dry robes, walked across the field, across the back of the car park, had a swim with them, came back and everything was okay. So I just started swimming in lots of different places and got to meet lots of different people. And just joining different Facebook pages and different groups, you get to swim with different people. Everybody in the water is the same. You can be a princess, or you can be a cleaner, or you can be a director of a company. Everybody in the water, it's that vulnerability that everybody is the same. And everybody just wants to be there because it makes them feel really, really good.
I've certainly seen it been popping up a lot more on, Facebook
Yeah.
pictures and things that I've seen. And even in, things on the TV and in films as well. There seem to be more and more
Lots of films that are out recently
depiction of group.
yeah,
Yeah,
that we've caught onto. There's your summer swimmer and there's your winter swimmer. And
right.
I'd done my triathlon in June and I'd done a few more swims and it was starting to get towards the winter. And I was thinking, I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to carry this on when it gets really, really cold. So
Yeah.
I thought I will just keep going and see how far I can go. And you don't have to
Oh my
swim
goodness.
in a lake or in a river. I've got a Lido very close to where I live, which is very, very well supported, which I often swim in as well. And I've recently invested in a little pod in the back garden as well, so I can get my cold water fix even when I'm not going to a lake or a Lido. So I got through that first winter. I swam through wearing a long wetsuit. The following winter, I did a short wetsuit. And this winter, I'm trying to progress to just a swimming costume. So
Oh my
there are
God.
lots of different
Amazing.
lots of different things that you could. I was trying to think about the other day about how I would say how fantastic it is and how I could relate it. The only thing I can relate it to is when you get a runner's high, when you've been and had a cold water swim, you get a swimmer's high. And I would say it's probably 10 times the height of a runner's high. It's very, very heightened. And lots of
Right.
people do become addicted to it. And I've got friends that are doing a dip a day for a year or a dip a day for a month. And,
Wow.
lots of people form friendships and the camaraderie is amazing. So the group that I belong to is called the Bluetits. And it was started by a lady called Sean. And Sean lives in Pembrokeshire on the coast. And she started the Bluetits a few years ago now because her and her friend would go down to the beach, get in the sea, come out, and they'd be all euphoric afterwards. So she started this phenomenon years ago, and we now have different flocks all over the UK. And I belong to two flocks because I'm on the border of both. And we also have some Bluetits that are international as well. Um,
Is this a group for people who are well established at doing open water swimming,
it can be
or is it for new people?
there's people with varying abilities within each group. So you've got somebody like me that's swum for a few years, and we encourage those new people that, much like I was 3 years ago, that come onto the group and say, I want to give it a go. I'm not sure. What do I do? So we say, come along, have a go. If you want to come and watch the first few times, that's absolutely fine. But you get drawn
Okay.
in. I mean, I've made some
Yeah.
really amazing friends. I call them normal friends, but all my normal friends think I'm bonkers for doing swimming in lakes, rivers, cold water swimming. So I have my swimming friends, and
Right.
it just gets you like a snowball. It really does become addictive to the point where, we set up swims every week. We invite anybody in the flock to come along. We take pictures. We'll do strange things like we'll dress up. So we had an Advent December. So each day in December, you had to have a certain theme if you were swimming. And we shared those photographs online. And it's just about encouraging and empowering people to achieve more than they think they can do. And I actually asked the group when I told the group that I was going to come and do a podcast. I said, give me one word that you feel about swimming. And I'd really love to share with the group tonight some of the words that have come up over and over again. So overwhelmed, you get that real sense of overwhelming. It can be an overwhelming calmness. It can be an overwhelming rush. Grounded. So you feel that, everything's grounded, particularly if you're swimming in a lake and there's, you and possibly one other person in there. You can look around and you can see things that you wouldn't see from the bank of a river. And, you feel that you are at nature and you can see the birds in the trees. If you're swimming at dusk, you can see the bats. You can see some fish, which some of us don't like to necessarily see. But you can feel that real being at one with nature, full and grateful.
Yeah, I can imagine that being a feeling.
Absolutely. Thankful and grateful. I start conversations with people all the time when I'm swimming. And I swim at some places that are lifeguarded and you book a session, you go along. And I swim at places that are a river and I take a group of them. You can feel thankful and grateful for many, many things. I was swimming with a lady a few weeks ago that I'd never met before. And as we were getting in, we do the normal breathing exercises as you're getting in and have a bit of a chat. And I said, what are you doing tomorrow? Just a bit of chit chat. She said, actually, my husband's having open heart surgery. I was like, it was almost like being a hairdresser because people tell you things that you wouldn't tell a stranger in the street, but you're in a lake swimming with this person you've never met before, and they will tell you the most personal things ever. And, I said to her, so what are you doing here? Why are you swimming the night before your husband's having open heart surgery? Why aren't you with him? Because I need to be here for me so that I can be there for him tomorrow, was her answer. So
Wow.
people share those real personal things. Back to the words. One of my swimming buddies said they felt blessed. Not necessarily in a religious way, but they felt blessed that they can access this wonderful body of nature. At one with nature kept coming up a few times. Yeah, buzzing. That takes us back to the old runner's high. If you come out the water and you've had you've gone in there and it's 3 degrees, you come out and you are buzzing. And it's some people say it's like drinking 5 espressos.
Is that when it hits, when you come out, or when it's
so
the cold water?
Your body temperature keeps dropping for a few minutes after you come out. So we always say, some people use that rule of you can stay in for a minute every degree. So if it's 5 degrees, stay in for 5 minutes. That's a total myth. You get out when you've had enough, because what I can use as my tolerance level today would be very different tomorrow. So know when you've had enough. So if people say to me, tell me when it's 10 minutes, I'm going to get out. The answer is no. You know when you've got to get out. And, you don't swim by anybody else's rules. You go by your own rules. So
that sounds very important.
Yeah. And lots of the places that we go to, when we've got new people, we'll make sure that they are lifeguarded places. So that if something does happen, because there is the cold water aftershock that can be very, very dangerous, that's when people have that massive drop, and it can take a long time for them to come back. And some very experienced swimmers still have those as well. But actually, that's one of the reasons why we swim in a group.
Yeah, which you always recommend them to be in a group.
So when we swim together, you get out and you look after each other. Even if I don't know somebody that's at a lake and I see them looking a bit maybe blue on the lips or a bit shivery, I'll go over and ask them if they're okay. And that's the swimming community. That everybody does that. So we've had buzzing, we've had a natural high. So it can produce that natural high. Addictive. Many of my swimming friends say it is addictive, and not only from a swimming point of view, that you need a swimming costume. My husband says you only need a swimming costume to go swimming. Well, no, you've got to have your toe float and your wetsuit and your nice dungarees for when you get out. So it can become addictive, not only from a participation point of view, but everything that you buy is swimming orientated. So I used to be a lady that loved handbags. Now I'm a lady that loves bobble hats because I have so many, one for every occasion.
I love that. I love
Um,
it.
and, the other word that I will use when we're getting in the water, if it is really cold, we'll say it's bitey. So can you feel that, is it bitey today? So those were some of the words that my group came up with. I wanted to sort of touch on the different types of swimming while we're talking about swimmers high, because I like to swim in a group and also I like to swim on my own. So I get different pleasures from both of those activities. So I will try and mix the two up. So I will sneak off for a swim on my own and not post it on the page, because sometimes I want to be on my own and I want to do 2 miles around the lake or whatever. And that is my time for me. And there's no phone and there's no emails and there's nobody shouting at me and there's nobody asking me where something is. That's my time and that's my thinking time. So I like to mix it up and do a little bit of
It's lovely that there's the opportunity to choose
yeah,
what is it that I need today,
yeah,
and then choose
absolutely.
the actual.
And I've joined the Bluetits and I'm very active within the Bluetits and other swimming groups as well, because I like to mix and match the people that I swim with, and you get different things from different people that you swim with as well. But I've continued to challenge myself because nobody sits still, do they? Everybody wants to challenge themselves. And that's, I've challenged myself to get in the water. And then last year I challenged myself. I did a very silly thing I'd done a swim in London in the docks, and it's called Dock to Dock. And it's an amazing swim. And I'd come home, I'd got my swimmer's high. And as we all do, I thought, what can I do next? What can I challenge myself? So I registered myself for a 3-mile swim down the Thames, like you do.
Oh my goodness.
So I did that last year. I swum in lots of different places that I never thought that I would swim in.
Is there a concern about the cleanliness of water? Is there a
Yeah,
website you can find clean
yeah.
water
So
to
all the
swim?
organised swims, they test the water anyway. So if
Right.
like dock to dock, they will test the water beforehand. And if it's not safe, you're not allowed to get in because they don't want people to be ill. So, all
The
the,
Thames, I was thinking of.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, the Thames, we were told when we got in not to swallow it. So, you know, there is a little bit of risk involved, but you're not supposed
I
to
guess
drink it
that's part
really.
of it though, isn't it? Yeah, yeah.
So
You need to know what you're doing going
yeah, so
somewhere like
this
that.
year's challenge is Coniston. So I'm doing 5 miles. In June of this year, it will be the longest swim that I've ever done. Pushed myself last year to do the 3 miles. And I trained really hard for that, even practicing eating in the water, because some swims you have to get out and get back in again to eat. Some you have to tread water. Um, so I've challenged myself to that. I am also doing the UK Cold Water Swimming Championships down at Tooting Bec Lido at the end of January, which is a very big challenge for me, because this challenge is that you cannot wear any neoprene. So no gloves, no boots, no wetsuit, swimming hat only, and swimming costume. So the temperature could be anything from 3 to 5 degrees. It's 30 meters, so you're not going to be in there for long. So by the time you've got in swim, you'll be getting out again. But I
Yeah,
like,
I was going to ask about the temperature. What kinds of temperature, even in the summer? So when you're saying you're doing events in June, July, I mean, what is the maximum the temperature that these cold water swims get to? I mean, they
so
must be still quite cold.
yeah, they consider cold water swimming anything sort of below 10 degrees, and that's considered an extreme sport. In the summer, believe it or not, in the summer, if I'm doing more than a mile and I'm staying in for a long period of time, I will wear a full wetsuit because I just get too cold otherwise. There are some swims, if the temperature in the water is above 23, you are not allowed to wear a wetsuit. You have to go in a swimming costume. So it's really heavily regulated when you're doing organised swims. But again,
Right.
it's very individual. So, what might work for me might not work for you. And you get to know your body. And I know if I'm doing more than a mile, I need to have a wetsuit on. Otherwise, I can't stay in long enough just because I get cold.
I've definitely seen a picture of you holding ice.
Believe it or not, most of my swimming friends chase that type of picture. That is the picture where everybody wants. That's what we call the money shot, is that shot holding the ice.
Right.
So yeah, we've
It
done.
certainly impressed me.
Oh, thank you. And it wasn't out of a gin and tonic either. So, so yeah. There are lots of ways to get involved. We have dry tits as well as wet tits. So sometimes people want to come along, but they don't want to get in the water. That's absolutely fine. You can come along and support in other ways. So holding somebody's towel or blowing up their toe float, or making them a cup of tea at the end. Those are all things that we value as well, because sometimes when you come out and you're cold, you can't get your gloves off, you can't get your wetsuit off. So it's always really good to have people there that come to support. We have some husbands that come and get involved as well, and some family members. But part of the Bluetits is the inclusivity. Everybody's got something to offer, and we encourage that in any way, shape, or form that we can. And we do lots of different challenges. So at the moment, over the winter, we have different challenges at different levels. So challenge 25 is to swim 25 times between the end or 1st of November and the end of March. We do the same for 50, we do the same for 75, we do the same for 100. But every swim, I always say, is an achievement. What you've been through personally to get there and get yourself in the water makes you the most amazing person ever. I've made some really brilliant friends, and it's not just about the swimming. It's about what happens when you come out the water and you've got your hot water bottle and you've got your cup of tea and your bacon butty, and those chats that you have and the support that we give to each other as individuals. And I lost my mum 18 months ago, and my swimming friends were there for me then, and they helped me through that. In fact, I was swimming the day after I lost my mum, and I got in the water, and as I was getting in, somebody else was getting out. And this lady said to me, "Oh, it's the first time I've been in months. I lost my husband a while ago." And I said to her, "Well, I've just lost my mum." And we stood there for a good 10 minutes, never met each other before. But it meant the world to me that lady had shared that with me, and I shared something back with her, and she was able to comfort me and I could comfort her. So it's not just about what happens in the water and how that makes you feel. It's about taking other people on that journey with you, and just being nice to each other. Because sometimes I think in the world that we live in today, sometimes people aren't that nice, and to include everybody, I think is just really, really amazing.
Special. Have you found there's been any specific challenges? You mentioned at the start there was the challenge of getting in to begin with, based on
Yeah.
previous experience. Have you found any other challenges have kind of come along that you've had to beat to keep
think
doing your
there's
swimming?
some of my swimming buddies will say it's a challenge every time to get in the water, because we all get so far in and go, "Why am I doing this?" And then we remember why we're doing it. We get in, and it's that sort of that feeling of, we know it's going to be good for us. We know we're going to feel amazing when we've done it, but maybe not. One of the challenges that I have, and it's a current challenge that I have actually, is that I currently swim breaststroke, and I have not yet mastered front crawl. So although I can swim 3 miles, I'm swimming 3 miles breaststroke. And my challenge to myself is to sort out the front crawl and make sure that I can do that before I swim Coniston, because 5 miles swimming breaststroke is not going to be good for
Yeah,
my
that's not
back
so
or my
good.
neck. Um, so that is a challenge that I have for myself. But everybody that you speak to has their own little challenges. I think one of the most amazing events that I've been to as a swim was in September of last year. Our group took part in a 24-hour swim for a charity. And
Wow.
it was teams of 8 people, and you swim an hour at a time in rotation. So you have your team, you get to know your team very well, because you end up spending that entire 24-hour period with them. And you get to sleep with
Yeah.
most of them as well, because you're sleeping in rotation as well. And we had a fantastic team leader who got us organised really, really well, and made sure that if you're getting out, you stay up for the next hour to look after the next person getting out. So it was such an amazing experience. And there were so many lovely stories, because there was about 30 different teams there. And some people had come a very, very long way to do it. And you're camping there overnight in the middle of a field. and all you can hear and see is swimmers and lit up tow floats. And, it was just such an amazing experience that actually we're trying to pull together teams for this year. We're hoping to get 2 or 3 teams from the Bluetits together to go and do that and support it again, because it was
Yeah.
just so amazing to see people's faces and the camaraderie and the support for each other. It was, money can't buy that type of experience. And most people have said they
Yeah.
would really love to do it again.
Yeah. What beautiful memories to have as well. Are
Absolutely.
there any other events you've had that have been particularly memorable experiences?
I think the first time I swam in the docks in London, I've done the same swim twice now. And actually, one of the things that I decided to do was to also volunteer at the event as well. So, I mean, you and I both know about volunteering because we've worked at the Commonwealth Games. So I volunteered for the first 6 hours and then I did my swim. And I'd not swum in the docks before or anything like the docks. It had all been lakes and rivers. And I didn't realise it was a jump-in entry, because normally it's either a ladder down or steps in. And so everybody
Right.
else is doing this fantastic, running up to the edge, jump and dive in. And I'm going to lower myself in gradually. And as I lowered myself in gradually, my head went under the water and I bobbed back up again to see a fag butt floating past and a dead duck.
Oh,
So,
oh my goodness.
so I needed to put that behind me. The other challenge that I have is I don't like, this sounds bad for somebody that's part of the Bluetits, but I don't actually like birds and things that flap at you.
Yeah, I
Makes
can imagine when
yeah.
you're at the same level as them.
No,
I
it
can
makes
imagine that
me
being.
panic. I don't like to feel the fish either. I know they're in there and that's fine. And they normally do get out the
Yeah.
way because they're probably more scared of us than we are of them. But I was at one particular swim called Saxon Mill a few years ago, and it was dusk. It was just getting to about 6 o'clock. It was just starting to get dark as we got in. And we group of ladies, about 5 or 6 of us, I was swimming along and a fish or something touched me in the water and I let out a tiny little scream of concern, which then set off the bats. So the bats are flying in between the trees and I'm convinced at this point they're flying at me. And so I'm screaming because the bats are now out and then there's something else touching me. And then it got into this concerning loop
Oh,
of
my goodness.
I need to stop screaming because I'm now setting the bats off more than the fish. So challenging myself to get over that fear of things touching me in the water. I've learned
Yeah.
a lot of strategies to calm my mind, to breathe and just to be in the moment and not think about what is necessarily underneath me or below me or around me. Some people like to look, but I'm fine not looking.
Yeah. Yeah. Fair enough. I'm with you. So if somebody was to think about starting open water swimming or cold water swimming, what would your recommendation be for them
I
to
would
get
say
started?
leave it till a bit closer to the summer. I have friends that have started in February. One lady in particular who's a true inspiration to me started last February. I met her at the Lido, 7:30 on a Friday morning. And the water temperature was something like 5 degrees. And she said, it's my first swim today. And I thought, you must be mad. But she's absolutely brilliant. My tips would be go along, meet with a group, watch what they do before you commit. People come along with this massive weight on their shoulder that they've got to get straight in. And it's all about, we've got to be seen to be doing it. Come along and watch, see what we do, see the tips that we've got. We do some strange things to keep warm, like your boots, because you have boots that you wear that have got a proper sole on them. If you put dog poo bags in them first to slide them on and off, they come on and off quicker and the feet stay warmer. So there are all these little hints and tips that non-open water swimming people wouldn't know about, and they can learn from us and embrace those weird things that we do just to keep, a few degrees warmer a bit longer and staying a bit longer. So I would definitely leave it till it's a little bit warmer. Come along, meet a group, join on Facebook, go to a local venue, have a look around. There are some fantastic introduction to open water swimming courses that you can go on, which I would highly recommend before you put your toe in the water, so to speak. you don't have to be a confident swimmer to be an open water swimmer. If you can swim, that's fine. You know, you can, if you want to stay where it's shallow, you can stay where it's shallow. Most of the venues that we go to will have a map, and they will say how far the distance is, which way you're going to swim. Then have kayakers on the water. If you want to stay in the shallow areas, they can tell you where the shallow areas are. So if I'm going to do a swim and it's somewhere that we've not swum before, I would have got in and had a look round and seen, you know, it's step entry, you know, you can stand here, be prepared if I was taking somebody with me somewhere for the first time. But most of the venues that are paid for venues are excellent with supporting that. And most of them have fantastic areas for tea and coffee afterwards, and the odd cake or two, which is what we all love at the end of a swim.
Perfect. Yeah, fantastic. I mean, this has been fascinating, Millie. Thank you so much for this. So
You're very
to
welcome.
me, I always thought it was all about the swimming, but actually it's really come across how much more
It's
it is
more
than
than
just the
just
swimming.
swimming. Yeah, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. And lifelong friendships have been, you know, have come from this, and we do some random things as well. So my friend and I have both got dinosaur costumes, and we'll dress up as dinosaurs occasionally and come up creeping through the lake to make people laugh and things like that. But for us, it's about having some fun as well, and making new friends, as well as making sure everybody's safe.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, that's really come across. So thank you so much.
Okay,
Millie's going to give me some links to put in the show notes if
absolutely.
anybody wants to find out more. And thank you.
You're very welcome, Sarah.
What an incredible insight into the cold water swimming community as a wellness practice available to all ages, abilities, and disabilities, with multiple benefits. I love how Millie's story reminds us that wellness isn't about perfection. It's about showing up, challenging yourself, embracing unexpected benefits, and finding joy in the journey. If Millie can overcome her fear of open water and swim in freezing temperatures, what might you be capable of? As she touched on in the episode, outdoor swimming is physically challenging and it carries with it certain risks of personal injury. Please approach cold water swimming responsibly, especially when getting started. Select your location carefully and join an experienced group such as the Bluetits. There's links to the Bluetits website and open water swimming advice in the show notes. Until next time, I'm Sarah, and remember, there's many paths to wellness, and sometimes they start with having the courage to take the plunge.